Hi there, Lewis Denham Parry from Edera here, and I'm going to go through the GPU pass-through demo that you can find on docs.edera.dev. So getting started, let's see. We're at SSH transfer machine, and we can see that we have 8 AMD GPUs available here. Each line represents a GPU. We can see the locations on the left. And now we're seeing this configuration of the GPUs with Edera Protect. This is a daemon toml file where we're just simply giving the GPU a name and we're defining the location, as well as a couple of other settings regarding it. We can currently see that we have no Edera zones set up. Now, these Edera zones are the isolation that we're going to use to provide our workload access to the GPUs, but ensure that only those applications within the zone have access to the said GPU. So to do that, we're going to create 8 zones. Each zone is going to have its own GPU. So if we have a look here, we're going to name the zone GPU 0 for this one in instance, and we're going to give that the GPU 0 hardware that we saw within the toml file. Now, another thing to note here is the kernel that we're specifying in a zone. Each zone has its own kernel, and each of these kernels are OCI compliant. So we're pulling through the kernel for zone AMD GPU kernel 6.14.10. In this instance, because the GPUs are all the same, we're using the same kernel, but there is no reason why you couldn't use different kernels within different zones. So checking this now, we can see that we've got 8 zones created. And as we saw with the setup, each zone has its own GPU available. Now the GPU is made available to the zone, but we need to initialize it and we need to load the GPU itself. So here we can see that with similar terminology that you might be used to if you're coming from a container background or a Kubernetes background, we're execing into zone GPU4. So throughout this demo, we're going to use GPU4. And we're using BusyBox, and we're going to be using modprobe, and we're going to use that to load the AMD GPU drivers. So to confirm that the driver has been installed successfully, we're checking the logs for the zone, and as we can see here, we can see that there is quite a bit of information, but most importantly, that it has successfully loaded the GPU. As well as checking the logs, we can also run lsmod within the zone itself. And so again, we can see here that the GPU has been loaded. Now the zone itself is the area, the boundary that we're setting up, and we've provided the GPU inside of that. To be able to run workloads within there, we are specifying that we are going to run a workload, and this is a container image, and that's going to allow us to interact with the GPU device. So to check, we can see that we have a workload for GPU4 running here. Now we're going to execute the workload. So when we execute this workload, this is returning to us information regarding the GPU. So we can see the GPU temperature, for instance. And we can also see the usage of the GPU, and that is currently set to 0. Again, this is an empty zone with a GPU, and we've just run this workload just to be able to see that we can connect onto the GPU device. So what have we achieved here? Well, we've shown how when you have numerous GPU devices on a single machine, and you might have multiple workloads that require only access to the GPU device, and most importantly, that you don't want anyone else to be able to access that GPU, you can achieve that with Edera protected zones and utilizing our GPU pass-through. Anyway, you'll find more information about this on docs.edera.dev, or please feel free to reach out to us. Thank you.